Welcome to AI for Everyone, the podcast that demystifies artificial intelligence and makes it useful for teachers, students, employees, small business owners, and lifelong learners. I'm your host, Brett Hansen, a 25-year public school educator with over 2 years of experience exploring AI as a teacher, enthusiast, mentor, and everyday user. I'm also certified through Google and ISTE in technology training, and hopeful that I'll be able to help you navigate this fast-changing world with confidence, curiosity, and a focus on ethical, practical use. Each week, we'll start with a real-world story, introduce a free or low-cost AI tool, teach a future-ready skill that can be used with that tool or others, and finish with either timely AI news, an interview, or a short history spotlight. Each episode will be about 20 minutes unless we have an interview. So whether you're new to AI or ready to level up, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome to the very first episode of AI for Everyone. Whether you're a teacher, student, school administrator, employee, business owner, or just a lifelong learner who wants to understand what's going on with all this AI hype and discussion, this podcast is designed to help you understand, use, and question artificial intelligence. Today, we're going to lay the foundation for the episodes that follow. We're going to talk about what AI is, a simple definition, why it's such a big deal, and how it's already affecting our work, our classrooms, our daily lives, whether we realize it or not. We'll explore what it means to be AI-literate, why job transformation matters more than job loss, and how we can all join the global conversation about ethics, creativity, and responsibility in the AI age. We're really going to sort of set a foundation. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why AI is not just for coders or tech CEOs or enthusiasts. It's for everyone, and that includes you. Now, I personally think it's important to always keep humans at the center of the story as much as possible. And my most important story comes from one of the first students that I really realized could benefit enormously from AI, but unfortunately I was too late. So in 2022, I had a student, I'll call him Alex to respect his privacy, and he was a hardworking student who really wanted to grow and to prosper, but he had limitations. He was a special ed student with slow cognitive skills and really low confidence. And right in the beginning of the year, he sort of grabbed me when he told his story about his childhood poverty and homelessness. And it really hit me hard because when I was young, I was homeless as well. And so I was really rooting for Alex and intended to help him as much as I possibly could. And we got to work. And by the fourth quarter, when we started the student-driven learning project where they get to choose their topic, Alex chose something that I thought was really smart. He wanted to start a small business when he finished high school, and I thought it was a great idea. To make a long story short, I was heartbroken when his project was not only not very good, it was quite terrible. He just didn't have the deep thinking skills, he didn't have the processing skills or the confidence. So even though he worked hard at it and we worked hard to try to help him, his business plan was terrible. His sample emails were weak, his business plan itself was weak, and he did not grow in his confidence regarding sales or speaking skills or any of these things. And it was even more ironic and heartbreaking for me because his dream job was to clean other people's toilets. Now, I assumed that Alex had worked in the cleaning industry here in Door County where we live because that's what he wanted to create, a small business that cleaned apartments, rentals, and all that. And all he needed was the necessary skills in order to persuade people to give him a chance because he's a very hard worker. But he couldn't do it. And then the year after that experience, or that summer actually, when I really dove in, this is the summer of 2023, I really dove into AI and tried to figure out how I could use it in my classrooms and how I can improve my work. I found myself over and over saying, oh, if I'd only had this for Alex, or oh, if Alex could have used this, because he had the will and he really wanted to do the work. He just didn't have the deep thinking skills or the organization. So if a student like Alex had had ChatGPT, he could have had a far better chance to compete with other people starting small businesses. So the moral of the story is that we all want a chance. We all want to grow. We all need tools. And if we deprive some people of these tools, we put them at an even bigger disadvantage. And for each of us individually, we should seize the moment and use all the tools we can. So let's start with the basics. Defining AI. Artificial intelligence is basically a branch of computer science that builds systems capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence, like learning, recognizing patterns, and making decisions. But it's important to note that AI isn't conscious or wise. It can't make wise decisions because it doesn't have a mind. It is a processor. It is like the brain side of a human being, but not the mind side. It learns from vast amounts of data and finds patterns that we can use. And it is getting really, really good at this. But we need to fundamentally remember that it is a thinking machine, not a decision maker. At least it shouldn't be. So why does this matter? One, it matters because AI is everywhere now. It's already transforming healthcare, farming, finance, marketing, customer service, investments, transportation, education, as I'm clearly aware, all kinds of elements of our lives. In short, it's touching nearly every industry, and it's accelerating faster than most people expected. The data explaining the overall effect on the global economy or on individual industries is astounding, and we will get into that in future episodes. Second, AI clearly boosts productivity. The McKinsey Foundation found that organizations using generative AI are seeing productivity gains up to 40% in specific tasks. And then across the board, if it is a focused thinking task, the gains are significant. Maybe not 40%, but they're happening everywhere. The third thing to remember is that it's not just about job loss. It's also about job transformation. AI is transforming how we work. So people who are losing their jobs are viewing it as something like the machines that replace people on factory lines. But it's really more about changing the pace of transformation. A 2024 PwC report showed that AI isn't killing jobs across the board. It's reshaping them. And in fact, roles that combine human skills with AI tools are growing faster than others. And they often pay more now. Workers with AI skills, according to the PwC Global AI Jobs Barometer, can earn an average of 56% more than jobs without AI skills. 4, it's important to realize what's happening in schools. AI tools are integrating schools, but not in an even distribution. AI tools can automate grading, provide real-time writing feedback, and support multilingual learners. It can help students with special ed, in special ed programs, and students with maybe undiagnosed disabilities through different types of personal learning plans. And these things all give teachers more tools. It gives teachers more time to create connections. And very importantly, it gives teachers time to cultivate what are called the 4 C's. Now, I have 5 C's in my class, but we used to think in education about the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. But now we really need to start thinking about the C's: creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. And I think we also need to focus on consciousness, because that skill of being able to make wise ethical decisions and questioning things is essential when AI is a part of society. I just recently heard this morning that the Miami-Dade School District, which is the third largest school district in the United States, is integrating Google's Gemini into their Google LMS learning system with Google Classroom. And so for non-educators, what that basically means is that all the students and all the teachers are going to have AI at their fingertips all the time. And they will set parameters on it to make sure students can do certain things and can't do other things. But the entire school district, all those kids are getting embedded AI training, and the teachers are getting specific training beforehand starting this next year. There are a lot of schools across the United States who have already done this, but now we have these huge districts doing it. And I'll keep you updated on that in the future. The fifth main point for this episode is the economic impact. AI is estimated to add up to $4.5 trillion annually to the global economy. And this is according to McKinsey. Once again, this is a 2023 report. And that's the equivalence of the entire economy of Germany. AI is an incredibly profitable, powerful force in our society, especially for employers, employees, business owners. AI is revolutionary. So, how do we prepare for a world shaped by AI? The answer is quite simple. You develop AI literacy. Now, AI literacy does not mean that you fully embrace all of the possibilities of AI. It doesn't mean that you accept it blindly. It means that you understand it better. And the better you understand it, the more you can do. Even if you want to completely oppose AI, you should still understand it. So AI literacy is more than just understanding the technical stuff. It includes three fundamental perspectives: the knowledge perspective, the skills perspective, and the attitude perspective. So when it comes to knowledge, this is basically about how AI systems work, what they can and can't do, how bias emerges in algorithms, what certain tools can do now that they may not have been able to do before. And really the only way to know this is to pay attention to the news and use the tools. Use some form of AI, which is getting to the point where it's hard not to. It is in our phones, it is in our computers, it's in our sat nav, it's in our cars, it's in our TV selections, it's in our algorithms for our Netflix choices. It is everywhere. The second perspective is that skills perspective, using AI tools critically and creatively. And for me, this means being able to say, I don't like this one, and I do like this one. I won't use this part, or I will use that part. It's about using AI tools for what's important in your life. So if you don't want to use AI for any writing stuff, but you're going to use it to research, that's a great decision. If you don't want to use it for any kind of writing or research, but you're going to use it to schedule your calendar, to solve problems that you couldn't do on your own, kind of like the way I hoped that Alex could use AI. And then the more you learn about one set of skills, the easier it becomes to learn other sets of skills. So it'll grow, and hopefully it'll grow uniquely to your needs. The third perspective is attitude. Now, one can be a strong critic of AI and technology, but still be curious and focus on an ethical compass or an ethical perspective. We need people to be skeptical of AI. One of the podcasts that I always look forward to when they launch a new episode is Technology Education Society, and it's an Australian professor who's very critical of technology in general and very much AI. And he clarifies for me many of the problems, talking about Google's role in the classroom and our over-dependence on AI and privacy issues. I am a firm believer that we need to listen to multiple sides of every perspective and angle, but we need to be curious about it, not just, I heard it was bad 2 years ago, so I think it's still bad today. So these three sort of perspectives can help us enormously. Now, Digital Promise frames AI literacy as essential to future-ready education. The Digital Promise published their AI comprehension in 2024, and they work really hard to help keep people informed about how to make ethical decisions and how AI should and shouldn't be used. And that ethical part is really important because AI isn't neutral. It's not like a Word software program, which isn't neutral either. But AI clearly lacks transparency, and we have to remember that. Even the developers of advanced models can't always explain how specific outputs are generated. And as AI gets smarter and better, it becomes even more complicated. We need to understand at least some of this so that we can stay on top of it. It can also reinforce bias. Now, everybody is biased. All sources in the world are biased, but we need to understand them. As a teacher of AP seminar, one of the things I teach my students right in the beginning of each year is that bias is a natural, normal part of information that is shared. And there are very, very, very few, if any, non-biased sources. It's just how is it biased? And we need to be mindful of that. And AI is definitely biased toward wealthier, Western, powerful communities. So if training data includes those societal biases, AI can amplify that and make it worse. And we need to be mindful of that. So a quick example, when I was making an image with DALL-E for my summer school course, Basic Computers with Raspberry Pi for the elementary students, I wanted an image of a teacher that was helping little kids. And I described myself. And even though I described myself as a middle-aged balding man with a beard, it still kept giving me a rather young, handsome-looking teacher with a short beard and flowing hair and mane. And I had to tell it 4 times that I have no hair and I need a bald man in this image. And finally, it gave me a bald man, but it turned my beard into like a halfway between my beard and ZZ Top's, some stylish, guy drinking a whole bunch of different types of IPA beers. But finally, I got the photo, but it reinforced for me the bias that's inherent in the images. And it's even worse for minorities and women. So we have to work on that. The other thing is it has big environmental costs. A single training run of a large AI model can emit as much carbon as 5 cars over their lifetimes. And so that's an issue that has to be dealt with, but we have to know about it before we can deal with it. So, for example, one of the things that I've learned to do is condense my information in custom GPTs or GEMs, as they're called in Gemini, and then the servers don't have to do as much work or go as far or extract as much information in order to achieve the goal that I want. It also gives me a lot more control. There are a bunch of other benefits, and I'll talk about custom GPTs and GEMs later. They're helpful for everybody. But we want to make sure that we're mindful of the environmental costs and talk about that. That's why we need people, especially students, teachers, and business owners and managers that can use AI, question AI, and reshape it as much as possible to serve our goals. So these are some of the reasons why we should learn, use, and debate AI. These are some of the reasons why we should discuss it in our communities and make sure that as many people as possible understand it and are using tools that function well for their lives and what the things we shouldn't use as well. It's already shaping the world we live in. It's already being used by students in huge numbers. And without instruction and training and ethical discussions, they're going to use it the easiest way possible, as will most adults. If we do not learn how to use it well, we will use it poorly. I mean, the whole garbage in, garbage out metaphor applies to AI in every possible way. So we want to make sure we understand it. And part of the reason is it's not going away. In future episodes, we will talk about the incredible economic effect, how little the government is doing and will probably continue to do little. And we need to make sure we understand it and try to make our voices heard or matter. Now, if you're wondering whether you have what it takes to understand AI, let me tell you, you do. You can certainly understand and use it intelligently. And the more you use it, the easier it becomes. You don't need to be a tech expert. You don't need to have ambitious goals. You don't need to have to want to make money. You just need to be willing to learn and to be curious and then set your parameters. I believe strongly in balance. We don't want to spend all of our time on AI. We don't want to spend all of our time on computers and staring at our phone. We just want to become efficient. So that's what this podcast aims to help with, to get people started, to answer questions, and then later to maybe bring people together to train and get more information. So I have a suggestion for you if you're interested. Before you come back to the next episode, think about asking somebody else in either your work life or your school life or in your community how they think AI will affect work or life over the next year. Now, in the past, we used to ask these questions in like 3 to 5 year chunks, but AI is moving so quickly that we need to narrow that time frame down. I learned from the the Artificial Education Show, a podcast I listen to every week, that the data is showing that a new higher performing model from the big companies like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft is coming out about every 3 to 6 months. And they predict that that's going to speed up for a while, and then it'll start to flatten out. So it's changing so quickly. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are a little hesitant to learn about it, because it seems like it's changing so fast. But the fundamental principles are the same. And then hopefully you might have a good conversation with that person about AI over the next year and how it's going to affect people. Now, next time in our episode number 2, we'll dive into our first tool, which sensibly will be ChatGPT, since they really launched this whole thing. A little bit about what it is, how it works, how it's changing, how it's different than some of the others, and help you get an idea of perhaps whether or not that's a tool that you'd like to use. Thanks for spending time with me today on AI for Everyone. I hope this episode gave you something useful to think about or something new to try. If you enjoyed it and have not done so already, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll never miss an episode. You're also invited to join the Hansen Education Services newsletter, where I share bonus tools, practical teaching ideas, real AI world examples, and curated updates to help you stay ahead in a world shaped by AI. To learn more or connect with me directly, visit hanseneducationservices.com. That's where you'll find all the podcast links, resources, citations, and more ways to grow your AI confidence. And keep an eye out for any upcoming workshops where we start to talk about meeting with the large groups to improve our skills. Thanks again for joining us. And remember, the most important 21st century skill is to always keep learning how to learn. See you next time.